In this session, we will try to discuss about external features of cerebrum. Cerebrum is part of forebrain. It is developed from the prosencephalon. I hope you must be aware of development of brain. Prosencephalon divides into telencephalon and diencephalon. Telencephalon develops into cerebral hemisphere. Diencephalon develops into thalamus, epithalamus, metathalamus, hypothalamus. Mesencephalon develops into midbrain. Rhombencephalon further divides into metencephalon, myelencephalon. Metencephalon gives rise to pons and cerebellum, and myelencephalon develops into medulla oblongata. Right? When we are discussing about cerebrum, first if you remove the cranial vault, you can see from above. That diagram I will draw first. Then if you take out the brain from the cranial cavity and if you see from the lateral surface, that is superior lateral surface, that I will draw next diagram. Then two cerebral hemispheres are like this, no? These two cerebral hemispheres are connected by one white matter. That white matter what we call corpus callosum. If you make a section along the corpus callosum, then you can see the medial surface. Right? So that medial surface also I will draw next diagram. Then if you turn the brain upside down, so that inferior surface of brain you can see. That inferior surface of brain also I will draw, so that you can discuss in detail regarding different sulcus and gyri which are present in the different surface of cerebrum. Right? So first I am taking the diagram of superior view of cerebrum. See here, this is one cerebral hemisphere. This is one cerebral hemisphere, and this is another cerebral hemisphere separated by median sagittal fissure, median longitudinal fissure or sagittal, median longitudinal fissure. Actually that median longitudinal fissure accommodated by or contains one fold of dura mater, sickle shaped fold of dura mater. That sickle shaped fold of dura mater what we call falx cerebri. Falx cerebri. F-A-L-X. Falx cerebri. Right? But it will not divide totally. In the middle, in the lower part, these two cerebral hemispheres are connected by one white matter. That white matter what we call corpus callosum. Corpus callosum. Right? So here this is corpus callosum. Now this is one cerebral hemisphere and this is another cerebral hemisphere. These two cerebral hemispheres are connected by white matter. This white matter what we call corpus callosum. Right? Of course behind you can draw. What is this? Cerebellum. Cerebellum. You please try to draw along with me. If you learn the diagrams, almost your preparation time will reduce 50%. Right? So here this is brainstem. Clear? So two cerebral hemispheres. This is which view? Superior view. Now I am taking the superior lateral surface. That means we have taken the brain and we are seeing from the side. So that surface, it is a convex surface. That convex surface what we call superior lateral surface. Now I am drawing superior lateral surface here. This is superior lateral surface. right? So this is superior lateral surface. Then medial surface. Medial surface means what? We have taken section along the corpus callosum and we are seeing flattened. Medial surface is flat because both medial surfaces are present against each other, right, and separated superiorly by falx cerebri, and in the middle connected by corpus callosum. Along that corpus callosum we made a section and I am showing over here, right? Here medial surface of cerebral hemisphere, medial surface of cerebral hemisphere. If you take the medial surface of cerebral hemisphere, we have to draw some structures which are present in relation with the medial surface. Otherwise, there is no difference between superior lateral surface and medial surface. See here, there is no difference, right? That's what we have to draw some structures which are present in relation with the medial surface. What is that structure? Here we made a section along the corpus callosum. So that section we have to draw here. This is corpus callosum. This is corpus callosum. This corpus callosum having different parts. What are those parts? This anterior part, this part what we call rostrum. What is it? Rostrum. And this bend is there, this is bend, what we call genu. Genu means bend, genu. And this middle part, body, so body here. And this posterior most part, splenium, right? So these are the parts of corpus callosum. Now below the corpus callosum, what will be there? You can find fornix. This is fornix. In between the corpus callosum and fornix, there will be one bilaminar septum will be there. That bilaminar septum, what we call septum lucidum or septum pellucidum. Here septum lucidum or septum pellucidum, right? Then in the anterior part, this rostrum, just below here, it will be connected with anterior commissure. Then from the anterior commissure there will be one lamina will be there. That lamina, what we call lamina terminalis. So this is lamina terminalis. This is optic chiasm, right? Then here behind the optic chiasma you can find pituitary gland. Then mammillary body. Here you can find mammillary body. This is thalamus. I will draw with other color. Here you can see thalamus. Then what is this? This is pineal gland or pineal body. Then superior colliculus of midbrain. Then inferior colliculus of midbrain, right? There will be a cavity within the midbrain. That cavity what we call aqueduct of Sylvius. Aqueduct of Sylvius. So this is aqueduct of Sylvius. Then below that what will be there? After midbrain, actually this is up to here, it is midbrain. Then here pons, then medulla oblongata. Behind what will be there? Behind we can find cerebellum, right? This aqueduct of Sylvius, it continues as a fourth ventricle, and here so this is continuous as a lower part spinal cord, right? Okay, I will draw with this same color only, so that it will be good. Right? So like this structure you can see, but if you want to see total medial surface, we have to remove all these structures. That means we have to make a section along the midbrain and we have to show. Before that, I will tell you what are the parts which are present in the medial surface. That means what are the parts we can see in the medial surface. You can see the section of corpus callosum. This corpus callosum having different parts: rostrum, genu, body, splenium, right? And this is lamina terminalis, and this is optic chiasma, and this is pituitary gland, and this is mammillary body, and this is pineal gland, and this is third ventricle actually here, okay, present in between the two thalamus, third ventricle, okay. And here you can see one addition. That means two thalami will be connected with each other. That addition what we call interthalamic addition. Interthalamic addition, right? To show the different sulci and gyrus, and for our convenience, I am removing all these structures and I am drawing only medial surface and which are intimately related with the medial surface, right? So let me remove these names and I will draw medial surface of cerebrum here after removal of all this structure. So here medial surface of cerebrum, and here corpus callosum cut section. This corpus callosum having rostrum, genu, body, splenium, and below that we can observe fornix. This is fornix, and thalamus must be here. This is thalamus. This is fornix, right? So these are the structures which are present in the medial surface, right? So that here we completed drawing medial surface, superolateral surface, and the superolateral surface from superior view, right? Then we will draw inferior surface. That means here just imagine this is cerebral hemisphere. This cerebral hemisphere, if you see like this, what is this? This surface is superolateral surface, and if you make a section along the corpus callosum, and if I remove this one, what you are seeing here? Medial surface, right? And if I am turning the brain like this, and if I show like this, what is this surface? Inferior surface. So that inferior surface I will draw here. So here and in the inferior surface you can observe optic chiasma, right? So here optic chiasma, this is optic chiasma. In the orbital surface you can find one more structure. What is this? Olfactory bulb and olfactory tract, then olfactory stria on both sides. So this is olfactory bulb and this is tract and this is stria, right? Then behind this, that means behind the optic chiasma, what you can observe here, you can see midbrain. This is midbrain. Following midbrain, you are seeing from below, that means you are seeing base of brain. So here midbrain, then pons next to the midbrain. This is pons, and after pons, what you can observe here, you can see medulla oblongata, medial sulcus, then pyramid, on either side of pyramid olive, on both sides olive, right? So this is totally brainstem we have drawn here. Clear? Then behind the brainstem, what will be there? That means behind the pons and medulla oblongata, you can find cerebellum. Cerebellum. So here this continuation I am drawing as cerebellum. So this is cerebellum. This is pons, right? This is pons and this is cerebellum. So cerebellum, you can draw some folia. Then here in the inferior surface you can observe one structure like this. This is uncus of what? Uncus of temporal lobe. So here also uncus of temporal lobe. Then this is temporal lobe. This is temporal lobe here. So this is inferior surface of brain or base of brain, right? Of course sulci and gyri are there. That sulci and gyri I will draw along with explanation. Clear? So this is inferior surface, right? Now we have drawn superior lateral surface. That means this is superior lateral surface only, but we are seeing from above. This is superior lateral surface, this is medial surface, and this is inferior surface, right? Now we should know what are the different poles which are present in the cerebrum. See here in the front, what is this? frontal pole, back present in relation with the occipital bone. So occipital pole. This is the pole which is present in relation with the temporal bone. So temporal pole. So how many poles are there? 3 poles are there. Frontal pole, occipital pole and temporal pole. Then borders. What are the borders which are present in the cerebrum? See here, here is the border. This border which is separating the convex superior lateral surface from the medial surface. I already told you, imagine this is the cerebral hemisphere. Now we made a section along the corpus callosum and I have removed this cerebral hemisphere. That means one hemisphere I have removed. Now what is the border here? This is the border. This border which is separating the, see here, this is the border. This border separating the medial surface from the superior lateral surface. This border, what we call superior medial border. What is this? Superior medial border. So what is this border here? This is only superior medial border. Right? So here also, this is superior medial border, this is superior medial border. Then one more border. Here is the border. See here, this is the border. This border separating the superior lateral surface from inferior surface. From inferior surface. This border what we call inferior lateral border. So this is inferior lateral border. This is inferior lateral border. Right? So this inferior lateral border separating the inferior surface from the superior lateral surface. Right? Then one more border. This is the border. This border which is separating the inferior surface from the medial surface. It is separating the inferior surface from the medial surface. Right? So this border what we call inferior medial border. Inferior medial border. Right? So now we know what are the poles: frontal pole, occipital pole, temporal pole. What are the borders? Superior medial border, inferior lateral border, inferior medial border. Right? Then what are the different sulcus and gyrus which are present in the cerebrum? Right? Now first we will take lateral sulcus. Actually lateral sulcus arises from the anterior perforatory substance. Actually this is anterior perforatory substance. Here this area is anterior perforatory substance. Actually anterior perforatory substance is nothing but the substance through which cerebral arteries are piercing. Actually these cerebral arteries are branches of middle cerebral artery. So branches of middle cerebral arteries piercing the substance, that means brain substance. So this area what we call anterior perforatory substance. Okay. From there, from the anterior perforatory substance, there is origin of sulcus. This sulcus what we call lateral sulcus. Lateral sulcus. This lateral sulcus having stem first, then it will divide into branches. So this is stem of lateral sulcus. This is stem of lateral sulcus. This stem of lateral sulcus, after separating the orbital surface from the tentorial surface. Actually this is tentorial surface and this is orbital surface. Why we are calling this as a orbital surface? This surface is resting over the orbital plate of frontal bone and this surface resting over the tentorium cerebelli. I hope you must be aware of tentorium cerebelli. It is fold of dura mater. So this surface what we call tentorial surface. Right? Now what I am trying to say, this is the sulcus. This sulcus which separates the orbital surface from the tentorial surface, then it reaches to the superior lateral surface. That means here, this point. The junction of inferior surface from the superior lateral surface. This junction, this point, what we call Sylvian point. Sylvian point. Of course, this lateral sulcus we can also call as Sylvian sulcus, right? Then from this point, this lateral sulcus divides into anterior ramus and posterior ramus. This anterior ramus further divides into anterior horizontal, anterior ascending. Anterior horizontal and anterior ascending. Then posterior ramus, it will not give any branch, it will go backwards. It will go backwards and ascends or upturned into parietal lobe. Right? So this is about lateral sulcus. Actually, if you take the length of these two, anterior horizontal and anterior ascending, 2.5 centimeters, and the posterior ramus 7.5 centimeters. Right? And if you want to learn little more about lateral sulcus, actually lateral sulcus develops first at the 4th month of intrauterine life. Up to 3rd month of intrauterine life, fetal brain is smooth. There is no sulci and gyri. Right? From the 4th month, first there will be formation of lateral sulcus. Just imagine this is the superior lateral surface of brain when at the 4th month of intrauterine life. This lateral sulcus, it will come and it will invaginate or it will dips the part which is present here. The part, some part will be present here, so it will dips, it will pushes interior, so that some part will be, see here, when it pushes, see here, here is the sulcus, this sulcus, it is pushing, so that this part it will be buried within the substance. So this burrowed part, what we call insular lobe. Insular lobe, right? So that's what, if you reflect, that's what, if you retract the lateral sulcus, if you retract the lateral sulcus after holding the temporal and parietal lobes, that means temporal lobe below, parietal lobe and frontal lobe above, if you retract like this through the lateral sulcus, in the floor of the lateral sulcus you can found one island of cortex. That cortex, what we call insular lobe. Insular lobe. How it has formed? It is buried because of formation of lateral sulcus. Right? Okay, that lobe I will tell you after completion of all these things. Right? So that is about lateral sulcus. Clear? Then we will see another sulcus, central sulcus. Central sulcus. This central sulcus arises from the medial surface. From the medial surface. First it arises from the medial surface, where just behind the point between anterior pole and posterior pole. If you make point, just imagine this is anterior pole and this is posterior pole. Actually this is middle, exactly middle. But if you make line just behind the middle, that sulcus, what we call central sulcus. This central sulcus arises from here, but it winds around superior medial border. Again, let me show you. This is medial surface, and this is anterior pole and this is posterior pole. That means frontal pole and occipital pole. Here, what is this? Central sulcus. This central sulcus, it winds around. What is this border? We have already discussed. This border is superior medial border. Then it winds around. After winding around, it comes downwards and forwards in the, it runs downwards and forwards in the, which surface is this? Superior lateral surface, right? So here it is coming like this and ends just above the, what is this? Posterior ramus of lateral sulcus. So somewhere here it is arising from here and it winds around this border. What is this border? Superior medial border, and goes like this, right? So this is central sulcus. And if you want to learn little bit about central sulcus, this central sulcus is limiting sulcus. Limiting sulcus means anterior to this sulcus motor areas are there, posterior to this sulcus sensory area. So this is motor area and this is sensory area, right? And also anterior to the central sulcus cortex is agranular, posterior to the central sulcus cortex is granular. Clear? So that is about central sulcus. And there is one more point. Actually during the development, central sulcus develops as a two small sulcus. There is two sulcus will be there, upper sulcus and lower sulcus. These two parts of central sulcus separated by transverse gyrus. This transverse gyrus during development it will be buried deep and these two sulcus will be united and forms central sulcus. Is it? That's what, if you observe in the brain, in the central part of, that means in the middle part of central sulcus, the depth of the sulcus is shallow if you compare with above and down. Okay, why? In the middle there is transverse gyrus is there, right? So that is about central sulcus. This central sulcus we can also call as central sulcus of Rolando. Central sulcus of Rolando. Clear? So that is about central sulcus. Then here one sulcus which is present 5 centimeters from the occipital pole. 5 centimeters from the occipital pole. This sulcus which is present here, this is sulcus. This sulcus what we call parieto-occipital sulcus. Parieto-occipital sulcus. So actually it is arising in the medial surface, then it comes up and it winds around the superior medial border. So this border, superior medial border, that's what it is appearing here. So what is this sulcus? Parieto-occipital sulcus. Then one more, 5 centimeters from the occipital pole, here you can observe one notch here. This notch what we call pre-occipital notch. Pre-occipital notch. So if we make an imaginary line from pre-occipital notch and parieto-occipital sulcus and another imaginary line, posterior continuation of posterior ramus of lateral sulcus. This is posterior continuation. Actually it is upturning into the parietal lobe, but if it goes posteriorly it will be like this. So this imaginary line we have drawn, right? So with these sulcus and with two imaginary lines, now we are dividing the cerebrum into different lobes. What are the lobes? Anterior to the central sulcus, frontal lobe, posterior to the central sulcus and in front of parieto-occipital sulcus and first imaginary line. Parietal lobe, behind this imaginary line, that imaginary line present in between the parieto-occipital sulcus and pre-occipital notch. This is occipital lobe. And here below the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus and in front of occipital lobe, this is temporal lobe, right? So these are the different lobes which are present in the superior lateral surface of cerebrum. Clear? Now within these lobes, what are the different sulcus and gyrus which are located, that we will see now, right? So in the frontal lobe, first I am taking frontal lobe, just in front of the central sulcus, you can observe one more sulcus which is extending downwards. This what we call like this. This sulcus what we call precentral. Pre means before, central means central sulcus, in front of central sulcus. So this is precentral sulcus. Because of precentral sulcus, now formation of gyrus between the precentral sulcus and central sulcus. This gyrus what we call precentral gyrus. This is precentral gyrus. I am not writing and I am pronouncing very slowly, okay, because all these words are new to you people. That's what I am pronouncing more times, okay. Try to adapt with this terminology, right? So this gyrus what we call precentral gyrus, right? Then in front of precentral gyrus there will be two sulcus. These two sulcus separating the frontal lobe into three lobes. What are that sulcus? Here superior and inferior frontal sulcus. Superior frontal sulcus and inferior frontal sulcus. Because of this sulcus, frontal lobe divides into superior, middle, inferior, frontal gyrus. Frontal gyrus. So superior, middle and inferior frontal gyrus because of superior and inferior frontal sulcus. Right? And one more. In the frontal lobe, because of anterior ascending and anterior horizontal sulcus of lateral sulcus, right? Because of these two sulcus, there is three areas are formed. 1, 2, 3. The area which is present below the anterior horizontal, this area what we call pars orbitalis. Pars orbitalis. Why we are calling this pars orbitalis? This is orbital surface of frontal lobe, right? So this area is in relation with the orbital surface. That's what this area what we call pars means part. Pars orbitalis. And here triangular area is there. Triangular area. This triangular area what we are calling pars triangularis. Pars triangularis. Then behind this there will be one more area. This is pars opercularis. Pars opercularis. Opercula. Why we are calling this as opercularis? I already told you. Because of indentation of lateral sulcus, some grey matter buried within the floor of the lateral sulcus. right? Because of that lateral sulcus, upper part one lid is there, lower part one lid is there, right? So this is upper lid, what we are calling opercula. This is another opercula. If you retract this opercula, you can see insular lobe, right? So it is in relation with the opercula. That's what this area what we are calling pars opercularis. Pars opercularis, right? That is about frontal lobe. Any difficulty up to here? Central sulcus, precentral sulcus, precentral gyrus, superior, middle, inferior, frontal gyrus, because of superior and inferior frontal sulcus. Here pars orbitalis, pars triangularis, pars opercularis, right? Then we will discuss about parietal lobe. In parietal lobe, behind the central sulcus, there will be formation of another sulcus. This sulcus what we call post-central sulcus. Post-central sulcus. This post-central sulcus present behind the central sulcus. Post means behind, right? In between the central sulcus and post-central sulcus, this gyrus is there. This gyrus what we call post-central gyrus. Post-central gyrus, right? Post-central gyrus is sensory. Precentral gyrus is motor, right? And this is central sulcus is limiting sulcus. Clear? Then one sulcus which is extending from middle of the post central sulcus. It runs backwards and enters into occipital territory. Occipital territory means occipital lobe, and unites with one sulcus named as transverse occipital sulcus. Transverse occipital sulcus. Now I am removing the imaginary lines to avoid confusion. So what is this sulcus? Transverse occipital sulcus. So this sulcus which is arising from the middle of the post-central sulcus extends backwards and unites with lateral occipital sulcus. So because of this sulcus, parietal lobe divides into superior and inferior parietal lobules. Superior parietal lobule and inferior parietal lobule. That's it. Then there is a gyrus which is arched around the parieto-occipital sulcus. See here, this is a gyrus. Just imagine if the sulcus is like this, around this sulcus there is arch gyrus. So that's what that gyrus what we call arcus. Arcus means arch. Around what? Parieto-occipital sulcus. That's what arcus parieto-occipitalis. Arcus parieto-occipitalis. Right? Then, if you take the temporal lobe, in the temporal lobe, two sulcus are there. Superior temporal sulcus, inferior temporal sulcus. This superior temporal sulcus extends backwards and upwards and enters into what is this territory? What is this lobe? Parietal lobe. Right? Now, these are two ends. This is posterior ramus of lateral sulcus and this is superior temporal sulcus. These two sulcus are extending into the parietal lobe and these are ending over here. So same like this only, at the end surrounding this sulcus there is a gyrus, formation of gyrus like this, right? So if the gyrus arching over the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus, this gyrus what we call supramarginal gyrus, right? So this is supramarginal gyrus. Then another gyrus which is present or which is arching over the superior temporal sulcus. So this gyrus what we call angular gyrus, right? So with this we completed parietal lobe. Very simple. Parietal lobe contains intraparietal sulcus. This sulcus is there, no? This sulcus what we call intraparietal sulcus. I think I didn't give name, no, when I am explaining. Okay. This sulcus what we call intraparietal sulcus. Because of intraparietal sulcus, parietal lobe divides into superior and inferior parietal lobules, right? Around the parieto-occipital sulcus there is a arched gyrus. That arched gyrus what we call arcus parieto-occipitalis. Then in the inferior parietal lobule, around the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus, that means around the tip of the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus, there is one gyrus. That gyrus what we call supramarginal gyrus. Around the tip of superior temporal sulcus, that gyrus what we call angular gyrus, right? Parietal lobe completed. And the temporal lobe, it's very simple. We have already drawn the sulcus, superior and inferior temporal sulcus, so that three gyrus are formed: superior, middle and inferior temporal gyrus, right? But here what you have to remember carefully, just imagine I have removed frontal lobe and parietal lobe. If I remove, you can see superior surface of temporal lobe, is it or not? Superior surface of temporal lobe, that too superior temporal gyrus, superior surface of superior temporal gyrus, you can see that. I will take here. Just imagine this is superior temporal gyrus. Within this superior temporal gyrus, you can see 3 or 4 transverse gyrus, 2 or 4 transverse gyrus. The anterior part, this anterior transverse gyrus is there, no? This is very important because this is primary sensory area of audition. Okay, so that I will tell you in the functional areas, right? At this session, just you remember that superior surface of superior temporal gyrus having 3 or 4 transverse gyrus, they are extending anterolaterally, they are directing anterolaterally, right? So that is about temporal lobe. Then occipital lobe. This occipital lobe, here you can observe one sulcus like this at the pole, just in front of the pole. This sulcus what we call calcarine sulcus. What is this? Calcarine sulcus, right? Actually here it will arises in the medial surface. It is arising from the medial surface, but it is winding here and extending into the superior lateral surface. Extending into superior lateral surface here, right? So this sulcus what we call calcarine sulcus. This is calcarine sulcus and it will come here. right? And this calcarine sulcus comes and touches with semilunar shaped sulcus or half moon shaped sulcus. This sulcus what we call lunate sulcus. Lunate sulcus. See here, this green color one what I have drawn. This is lunate sulcus, right? And any other sulcus are there in the occipital lobe? Yes, we have already drawn one. Okay, transverse occipital sulcus, right? Then another sulcus, lateral occipital sulcus. Lateral occipital sulcus. Here, lateral occipital sulcus. So, because of this lateral occipital sulcus, occipital lobe divides into superior and inferior occipital gyrus. Superior occipital gyrus and inferior occipital gyrus. And in between lunate sulcus and lateral occipital sulcus. Here one gyrus is there and it is descending down. That's what this gyrus what we call gyrus descendens. Gyrus descendens, right? So this is gyrus descendens, right? So this is about occipital lobe. Clear? So this is totally about superior lateral surface. This is very, very important essay question, right? So this is frontal lobe, different sulcus and gyrus. Fastly I will revise: central sulcus, precentral gyrus, superior, middle and inferior frontal gyrus because of superior and inferior frontal sulcus, right? In the inferior frontal gyrus, pars orbitalis, pars triangularis, pars opercularis. Here postcentral sulcus, in between postcentral sulcus and central sulcus, postcentral gyrus. Intraparietal sulcus, superior and inferior parietal lobium. Parieto-occipital sulcus. Around it, arcus parieto-occipital. Around the posterior ramus, what is this? Supramarginal gyrus. Around the superior temporal sulcus, angular gyrus. Right? Then temporal lobe. Superior, middle and inferior temporal gyrus because of superior and inferior temporal sulcus. And here in the occipital lobe, calcarine sulcus, lunate sulcus, lateral occipital sulcus. And here transverse occipital sulcus. Because of lateral occipital sulcus, occipital lobe divides into superior and inferior occipital gyrus. And in between the lateral occipital sulcus and lunate sulcus, this gyrus what we call gyrus descendens, right? So that is about superior lateral surface. Then we will go to medial surface. In the medial surface, what is this part? What is this? Lamina terminalis. Lamina terminalis. Just in front of the lamina terminalis, you can observe two sulcus. Two sulcus. What are these two sulcus? Anterior and posterior. Anterior and posterior para-olfactory sulcus. What are these? Para-olfactory sulcus. This is one and this is another. Para-olfactory sulcus, right? In between these two, anterior and posterior para-olfactory sulcus, gyrus will be there. This gyrus, what we call para-olfactory gyrus only, say with the same name, and we can also call it as subcallosal or subcallosal gyrus. Subcallosal gyrus because it is present below the corpus callosum. That's what it is, subcallosal gyrus. That's it. And in front of lamina terminalis and behind the posterior para-olfactory sulcus. Behind the posterior para-olfactory sulcus. This gyrus is there. That means this part. Exactly this part. This part. This gyrus. What we call para-terminal gyrus. Otherwise I will draw here. So this part is para-terminal gyrus. Para-terminal gyrus, and this is para-olfactory gyrus, right? Then here I am drawing calcarine sulcus and here parieto occipital sulcus, right? Now one sulcus starts in front of the genu of corpus callosum, extending backwards and reaches to the superior medial border, right? And from this, what is this sulcus called? Cingulate sulcus. From this sulcus, one vertical sulcus arises and extends upwards, right? And here it is already there. What is this? Central sulcus, right? So if you draw here, this is cingulate sulcus. So this is cingulate sulcus and this is vertical sulcus, right? Then just above the splenius, here there is a sulcus called suprasplenial sulcus. Suprasplenial sulcus. This is this one, suprasplenial sulcus, right? So now you will see what are the different areas has been formed because of cingulate sulcus, central sulcus, suprasplenial sulcus, parieto occipital sulcus, calcarine sulcus, right? Say now, because of this vertical sulcus, the part above the cingulate sulcus divides into anterior part and posterior part. This anterior part, what we call medial frontal gyrus. Medial frontal gyrus. Medial frontal gyrus, right? Then behind the vertical sulcus and in front of termination of cingulate sulcus, here there is a part of the gyrus and it is present around the central sulcus. See here, this central sulcus is there and present around the central sulcus, right? So this part, what we call paracentral lobule. What is it? Paracentral lobule. So this is paracentral lobule. This paracentral lobule is very important. Actually, this anterior part, see here, this central sulcus. In the superior lateral part, it is extending medial side. So this motor part is here, and behind this sensory part is there. This sensory part will go medially and present here, right? And those motor and sensory are controlling the almost same area. Okay, let me explain. This anterior part is there. This anterior part is motor. This posterior part is sensory. This anterior part of paracentral lobule controls the defecation and micturition, and the posterior part, the sensory part, which receives the sensations of distension of urinary bladder and rectum, right? So if anyone asks what is the cortical center for the micturition and defecation, what you have to say? Paracentral lobule. Of course, anterior part, that motor part, along with micturition and defecation, which will be controlling the motor control of contralateral lower limb below the knee, right? So that is about prefrontal gyrus and paracentral lobe. Then behind this, behind the cingulate sulcus and above the suprasplenial sulcus, this part what we call precuneus. Precuneus. Pre means what? Before, right? Precuneus. And where is cuneus? Here is the cuneus. This triangular area what we call cuneus, which is present in between the parieto-occipital sulcus and calcarine sulcus. So this is cuneus and this is precuneus, right? Then the part which is present below the calcarine sulcus, see, it looks like tongue. It looks like tongue. So this gyrus what we call lingual gyrus. Lingual gyrus, right? Now here one gyrus which is present in between the corpus callosum and cingulate sulcus. This gyrus what we call, this gyrus what we call cingulate gyrus. What is this gyrus? This is cingulate gyrus, right? This cingulate gyrus present in between the cingulate sulcus and callosal sulcus. Callosal sulcus means what? Above the corpus callosum there will be sulcus. That sulcus what we call callosal sulcus. Clear? Now here will be the sulcus in between the callosal sulcus and cingulate sulcus. This gyrus what we call cingulate gyrus, right? So that is about medial surface. If you want to read further more and if you want to learn or if you want to know further more details, see, there will be one grey matter which is present above the, what is this? Grey matter present above the corpus callosum. This grey matter what we call Undicium griseum. Undicium griseum. What is it? Undicium griseum. This Undicium griseum anteriorly continues with the paraterminal gyrus. Anteriorly continues with paraterminal gyrus. And the posteriorly it continues with one gyrus which is present above the splenium. Above the splenium. That means this is this part. This part what we call gyrus faciolaris. Gyrus faciolaris. Gyrus faciolaris. Gyrus faciolaris. Right? So then this gyrus faciolaris extends down and continues with the hippocampus. Continues with the hippocampus. Functional important I will tell you later. Let me complete the anatomy first. Right? So this is about medial surface of cerebrum. Then we will take the inferior surface. Right? So this is inferior surface. I hope you are remembering what I have told in the initial part of this class. Anterior part is orbital part, posterior part is tentorial part. This orbital surface contains one sulcus which is present above the, what is this? Olfactory bulb and tract. So if you remove this, you can find one sulcus here. This sulcus what we call olfactory sulcus. Olfactory sulcus. Right? Now in between the olfactory sulcus and medial border. Right? So this gyrus what we call rectus gyrus. Why we are calling it as rectus? Rectus means straight. It is straight gyrus. Right? So here also you can find straight gyrus. Then lateral to that you can observe one H-shaped sulcus. H-shaped sulcus. Right? So here also Because of this H-shaped sulcus, orbital surface divides into anterior, posterior, medial, lateral. Here also anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, orbital gyrus. Orbital gyrus. That's it about orbital surface. Then come to the tentorial surface. In the tentorial surface, here uncus will be there. What is it? This is uncus, right? From the lateral part of uncus, there is a sulcus like this. This sulcus, what we call rhinal sulcus. What is this? This is rhinal sulcus. Rhinal sulcus. Rhinal sulcus. Right? So, this rhinal sulcus extends only up to here. Then this posterior continuation, what we call collateral sulcus. Right? So, I will draw here. This is uncus. So that here is the rhinal sulcus and this is collateral sulcus. Then one more sulcus which is extending from the temporal pole to occipital pole, like this. This sulcus what we call temporo-occipital sulcus. Temporo-occipital sulcus, right? So now in the tentorial surface, because of three sulcus, one is rhinal sulcus and the posterior it is continuous as a collateral sulcus. That means only one sulcus we can consider. Then below that, it means lateral to that, there is another sulcus which is extending from the temporal pole to occipital pole. Temporal pole to occipital pole. So this sulcus, what we call temporo-occipital sulcus. Temporo-occipital sulcus. So temporo-occipital sulcus. Because of these sulcus, inferior surface divides into this medial part is there, no? That means medial to the rhinal sulcus and collateral sulcus. This part. This part, what we call para-hippocampal gyrus. Para-hippocampal gyrus. Then lateral to this, that means this one and this one. This is para-hippocampal gyrus. And what about these two? These two are medial and lateral. Medial and lateral temporo-occipital gyrus. Like sulcus only. Temporo-occipital sulcus is there, no? On either side of temporo-occipital sulcus, gyrus, two gyrus are there. Temporo-occipital gyrus. That's it. About tentorial surface. Clear? So, with this we have seen all sulcus and gyrus of different lobes. But we didn't see insular lobe and we didn't see limbic lobe. First, let me show you insular lobe. Insular lobe means, I already told you, we have to reflect this up and this down. That means insular lobe, it is present in the floor of lateral sulcus, right? So if I take diagram like this, see here, this is superior lateral surface and this is posterior ramus of lateral sulcus. What I am doing, I am retracting like this so that you can see deep to that, you can see island of cortex. That island of cortex, what we call insular lobe. Insular lobe. This insular lobe surrounded by circular sulcus, and it is triangular in shape. It is triangular in shape. So if it is triangular, this is apex, is it? This apex extends into the anterior perforatory substance. Anterior perforatory substance. So that apex what we call Lyman insulae. Lyman insulae. Right? So this mass of cortex or this island of cortex which is present in the floor of the posterior ramus of lateral sulcus, what we call island of Real. Island of Real. Island of Real. Right? So then it is divided into, actually this is insular lobe, and it is divided into anterior larger, posterior smaller part. Anterior larger and posterior smaller part by central sulcus. By central sulcus. So the anterior part is responsible for the smell and taste. Posterior part is responsible for the language. Right? So that is about insular lobe. Then what about limbic lobe? Right? Before going to say about limbic lobe, we should know what is the limitation of different lobes in the medial surface. In the lateral surface, that means in the superior lateral surface, you know the limitations. But in the medial surface, you don't know the limitations. If you say totally this part is frontal lobe, that means in front of the central sulcus, this total part is frontal lobe. It's a wrong. Right? Here you should know the limitation of frontal territory, limitation of parietal territory, limitation of occipital territory. Right? So let me tell you that the part which is present above the cingulate sulcus, in front of central sulcus, and cingulate above the cingulate sulcus. That means only this area. That area what we are calling medial frontal gyrus and paracentral lobule. Only that part, anterior part of paracentral lobule and medial frontal gyrus. Only this part belongs to frontal lobe. Right? Then parietal lobe. It is present in between central sulcus anteriorly and parieto-occipital sulcus posteriorly, that too where only this part above the suprasplenial sulcus, this part only parietal territory. Then behind the parieto-occipital, this is occipital. Right? And what about temporal? This one. What is this? Medial and lateral temporo-occipital gyrus. Medial and lateral temporo-occipital gyrus only belongs to temporal. Right? And what happened to remaining part? The remaining part is limbic lobe. What is the extension of limbic lobe? Limbic lobe is extended or it is present around the margins of diencephalon. So here this area cingulate gyrus, this totally cingulate gyrus and para-hippocampal gyrus and narrowest part which is connecting the cingulate gyrus and para-hippocampal gyrus. This is narrowest part. This is what we call isthmus. So this area is totally belongs to what? Limbic lobe. So that's it about different lobes. which are present in the cerebrum. Clear? With this we have completed external features of cerebrum, but I will tell something about different sulcus, that means classification of sulcus. Central sulcus, limiting sulcus, which limits the anterior motor, posterior sensory. And if you take structurally, anterior is agranular, posterior granular cortex. Okay. Then what is axial sulcus? Axial sulcus means along that axis growth will happen. Example is calcarine sulcus. Example is calcarine sulcus. Occipital lobe growth will occur along the calcarine sulcus, right? Then opercular sulcus or operculated sulcus. If you want to give explanation about operculated sulcus, very simple. There will be sulcus. Just imagine this is sulcus. This margins of this sulcus, that means this lips of this sulcus, lips of the sulcus separates two areas. It separates two areas, but third area will be present within the wall of that sulcus. Third area present within the wall of that particular sulcus, right? So lunate sulcus is example for the operculated sulcus, right? Then some sulcus are primary sulcus, some sulcus are secondary sulcus. Secondary sulcus means what? They will form because of some factors. Okay, and primary sulcus, they are independently formed. Most of the sulcus are primary sulcus, but secondary sulcus means because of some factors it will be formed. Example is parieto-occipital sulcus. Actually, parieto-occipital sulcus, before during development there will be many sulcuses. Many sulcus will be formed. Due to the development of brain, all these small sulcus united and forms big sulcus. That big sulcus what we call parieto-occipital sulcus. So this is secondary sulcus, right? Then some sulcus will be complete sulcus. Complete sulcus means what? They will completely invaginate the brain tissue. They will completely invaginate the brain tissue. Examples for that are calcarean sulcus and collateral sulcus. Collateral sulcus and calcarean sulcus. If you observe inferior horn of lateral ventricle, you can observe one invagination because of collateral sulcus. That's what when you are studying about posterior horn of lateral ventricle, you will encounter one word, that collateral eminence. Collateral eminence. That means collateral sulcus will invaginate into the inferior horn of lateral ventricle. That's what that eminence formed, right? And if you, when you are observing the posterior horn of lateral ventricle, posterior horn of lateral ventricle, at that time you will encounter another word, calcar avis. Calcar avis. Calcar avis means it is a invagination because of calcarine sulcus, right? Why? They are invaginated total depth of brain tissue and they are invaginating into the lateral ventricle. So those type of sulcus what we call complete sulcus, right? We are also completed our lecture, right? Thank you.